What's up, Donnie B? What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Nathan Ivy?
What's
How
up?
you doing?
We doing it. I'm doing great. How you doing, Black woman?
I'm chilling in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Still COVID-free.
I know that's right. To the listening audience, welcome to this special broadcast. It's the Is It Just Me podcast, teaming up with the Nathan Ivy Show, powered by Sin Digital Media, a new voice in the city of Cincinnati, to bring you this special live stream. And we're both very pleased that at 12:30 p.m. today, we're scheduled to speak with Laura Mitchell, who, of course, is the superintendent for the Cincinnati school system. And everybody wants to talk with her. There's a lot of questions and concerns. So I'm looking forward to it, Donnie B.
Me too. And I just want to say, shout out to everybody. I think this is me and Nate's first joint show. Hey, Akeem, Lady in Red, that's me. So I am excited that we are both together. Y'all know Nate's one of my most favorite people, and I love the platform that Sin Digital creates. I don't think there's anybody in the city doing it like we do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, folks, we do want to take your comments. I'm not sure we'll open up for phone calls today. Donnie B and I are going to spend the first 30 minutes kind of catching up, talking, people, politics, and pleasure, some things that are going on. We think you are very, very relevant. Plus, we both have very strong, listen, and one thing you know about the both of us is that we have strong opinions. Bar none, it is what it is. So I think it'll be a very interesting conversation between ourselves and also Laura Mitchell. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
So let's kick it off. Let me put the graphics up here, do the whole 9 yards now. We are
right
out here. Look at us.
Look at us.
So watch. I know you start your show this way, and I love it as an icebreaker. You start talking about some of your favorite shows, things you've been watching through in COVID-19. Everybody's been shut in, can't go any place. So they've been on Netflix, right. They've been on whatever, Hulu, whatever your platform of choice is. So we came up with our own respective lists of what our favorite shows are since COVID-19, going way back to March. And I am a gentleman, so ladies first. What's your top 3 shows you've been watching?
Oh, it's tough. Last night I was struggling, if I only got to choose 3. So I got 7 on here.
Okay.
But if I had to say a top 3 since March, I'm going to go with Money Heist on Netflix. I hands down think that Money Heist is the number 1 original series that Netflix has ever done. So it's basically, it's not a whodunit, but it's what do you call those type of shows where, you rob the bank, like Town and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's such a good twist on it. So that's probably my ultimate number 1.
Okay.
I say, what's your number 1? You want to go back and forth? Or you want me to just give you 3?
Well, give me 3 and I'll give you 3 and we can talk about it.
All right. So my next one is new. It was new to me. It's called Monogamy, and it's on the Urban Movie Channel, which is the new WB. And basically that's where they put all the Black urban type series and shows. And Monogamy is good. Now I'm going to give a caveat because I've been getting a lot of slack from the family because the cinematography is not the best. They got B-list actors like your boy from Family Matters back in the day. Angela Simmons, Rev Run's daughter, is an actress on there. And then some other, I won't even call them B-list. I'd say C-list actors or actresses that you've never seen at all, have only seen once in your lifetime. But I'm telling y'all, push through. So it's basically these 4 or 5 couples that are having marital problems. And they decide to participate in something called The Experiment. I'm not going to give it away. But I'm just going to say the first 3 episodes, you're going to be like, you know what, Donnie B, you are trash. I don't know why you told us to watch this. You need to be fired from the show. But after you push through, folks, and you get through the first season and you get to the second season, it's fire. It's got 5 stars on Amazon Prime. Monogamy, not mahogany, monogamy.
Right. Don't be confused by that.
Don't be confused.
I don't know if I've even heard it. I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't even think I even heard it. Maybe my wife watched a little bit of it.
It's on the low. And I'm telling you, when you watch the first episode, you're going to cut it off. You know what? I don't know what's wrong with Donnie B. I can't do it. Push through. I'm telling you. To me, if you're married, it's a must watch.
Oh.
I'm not married, but there's things that go on, and I'm like, you know what? If this is what marriage looks like, and this is how you push through, it's deep. I feel like if you married, it's a must watch.
Okay.
If you're married, it's a must watch.
Okay, I'm gonna put that on my list then.
Put it on your list, Monogamy, and don't call me complaining until after you push past episode 3 or 4. Don't call me. You're gonna want to call me at first and cuss me out. Don't do it. Refrain.
All right, I got you.
Just trust me and push through. A third is hard. because there was Little Fires Everywhere on Hulu. That was for the ladies.
Mhm.
So that's my 3.
Okay, that's your
And
3.
you know what? Homeland final season 8. I'm telling you, I cried. Like, I love Carrie Mathison and Saul Green. Yeah, Nate, I cried.
Don't spoil it for me because I'm like on season 5.
Yeah, you got to get there.
Homeland. Homeland caught me years ago, and then I disconnected from cable and just didn't have Showtime anymore. But I plan on coming back later. I love those kind of things where you start a series and then you lose contact and then go back to it. And then, it can be a lot of fun and entertainment. I love that. Okay.
I took a break from Homeland for a while, like a couple of years off, and came back and then finished it out. But yeah.
Carrie is a real one, and she also got problems.
Yes. She is everything and nothing at the same time. Like, she pisses you off, but then her dedication to the government is unreal. I don't have it. I tapped out a long time ago. I just don't have it like that.
So Money Heist, that is not an American production, right? Because I remember starting and it has subtitles.
Yes, it has subtitles. I think it's based out of Italy, but it's good.
It's good. Okay. I've heard good reviews of it. Okay. That's an interesting top 3. Here's my top 3.
Hey, man.
In no particular order.
All right.
1, The Five Bloods. That's the Spike Lee joint. Not sure if you saw that.
The Five Bloods?
The Five Bloods, right? And it's these brothers who have a special connection because they were in the Vietnam War. And I think it's very artfully done, very, very well done in the sense that they stay with this narrative, but they weave in the politics and the frustration of these black soldiers in the Vietnam War.
Okay.
And they all come together. Again, I won't spoil it, but they all come together for a very special reason in modern day times. And it kind of flashes back. But I thought it was really, really well done. It caught my attention. The imagery.
I saw a preview, but I didn't watch it.
You saw it what now?
I saw the preview, but I didn't check it out. I didn't know if it was going to be any good. I didn't hear anything.
It may be worth your time. Everybody got different tastes, but I thought it was interesting.
Anybody we know?
Yeah, Delroy Lindo. And he does a masterful performance in this.
Okay.
Delroy Lindo. And hold on a sec. I feel like I should know the names of the other individuals. Let me jump online real quick and see who else was in it that I can put out there. But he stood out to me. Spike is not in it. He has a history and put himself in all of his movies. He's not in this.
Did he do a cameo?
He didn't do a cameo. At least I didn't remember seeing him in a cameo.
Did he do his signature where the world moves?
Yeah, he did. Your brother straight from Wakanda.
Right.
Wakanda, he's in the movie as well.
Okay.
He plays a very important role. It's short, but he plays a very important role in the movie as well. And then after that,
all right, I'm gonna do it, y'all. I'm gonna do it this weekend. You know how I am.
It's worth it. Then I can't remember all the names of the other brothers, but all strong performances though. All strong performances. It might be a generational thing. I don't know if like people in their 30s will get into it. Maybe so. But if you're from that Vietnam era or anywhere born around that, I was born after the Vietnam War, it might interest you, right? Because in our generation, hip hop generation, it was just so much politics about it. So that's on my list for sure. Hold on, let me go back to it. I finished Ozarks. That's on my list.
I did watch Ozark.
I started and then I didn't finish until COVID-19. And I'll be honest with you, Donnie, people have been telling me about Ozarks years ago. Like, you got to watch it. And I watched the first couple of minutes of the first episode. It just didn't pull me.
Me neither. It didn't do it for me.
It didn't do it for me. But for some reason with COVID-19, I sat through it. I pushed through it, as you said earlier, and I ended up joining. I mean, them white folks got problems. Real problems, man. And Marty is, I don't know what the hell, what you want to call him, but it's the guy, man. He gets himself out of some of the most dangerous situations. I thought it was really interesting. Very interesting.
My favorite is the girl, the blonde, the young teenager with the blonde curly hair. What's her name?
I don't remember her real name or even her character name, but I did think that I don't know, strong performance, but I don't know. She started to irk me a little bit. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's
the wife. The wife irked me too.
Yeah, the wife started to irk me. My only critique would be of the black characters. I thought the black characters were all like troubled, and I just wish they were more fleshed out. Like the one brother that's in there, he's a gay guy.
Right.
What it is. He comes across a little weaker, right? That kind of, as a black man, kind of got to me. But aside from that, if you can push that to the side, it's a strong narrative, right? If you into those kind of crime stories, because that's essentially what it is. And then the last episode of the first season,
Right.
I was like, damn, we out there. They got that in the Ozarks.
Right.
Baby girl was serious about hers.
Hey.
So it's very adult, and I love adult things, some very mature situations and themes. If you like that kind of stuff, crime, drama, then I would definitely recommend Ozarks.
It does start out slow though. Like I felt like the first season was slow and then it was built up into the end. Then the second season, like it ebbs and flows.
It does.
You struggle with that.
It does.
All right, what's your third?
My third is not a TV show. It's a movie. Okay.
All right.
And this is not a movie that'll be for everybody. I fully understand that. I thought it was interesting just because it was kind of shocking. But it's a movie called Becky. You ever seen this before? Yeah. It's called Becky. Now, I'm not necessarily recommending this. I watched it like in the early morning. You never wake up early in the morning, like way early than you usually do. You just turn on something. Yeah. It was kind of like that. And it ended up keeping my attention. And this is kind of like Home Alone. Remember Macaulay Culkin? But it's not a comedy. Okay. It's not a comedy. It's very adult. It's very mature. It's very graphic. Essentially, it's a modern day twist off of the old motif of like Home Alone, Home Invader kind of thing. It's that kind of movie.
Is it a comedy or is it
not a comedy at all? It is a serious drama.
Look at you.
It is not a game.
Don't get confused.
Becky is not to be played with. A lot of people won't enjoy it. A lot of people won't be able to get through it. But if you like those kind of mature movies, it is graphic. It is not for children. And you like those kind of home invasion type of movies.
Right.
I mean, you know, they're out in the country at the summer house. Some dudes break out of the penitentiary and they come to the home. We've seen that. But the difference is Becky. And with all this going on with Karens in this world right now, I just thought it was quite interesting. It's kind
Charles said he saw Becky, but he didn't pull the trigger. But P-Valley, come on, Charles, I can't do it. I watched P-Valley for 10 minutes. Did you watch that, Nate?
Nah, what is that?
Don't ask. Like, don't do it. Look, we are PG. Look, we're PG-13, Charles. We can't even do it.
Really? What is the
P-Valley?
Or can we not say
that? It's about stripping. For me, I did Beyond the Pole, and that was stretching my comfort zone. P-Valley, I ain't gonna be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I forget. Charles, what channel was that on? I think it's HBO or Showtime. I can't do it.
Okay, I might put that on my list. I got fourth, and I think this is on both of our lists, and that's The Last Dance. That's the Michael Jordan documentary.
Right. We have to.
I was into it like everybody else because there was no basketball, and just to see the behind the scenes. I'm from that era, so I knew a lot of that stuff, but there was so much I didn't know.
Right.
And you know, I think we disagree about whether he's the GOAT or not. I will say that in terms of being the marketing genius, to be the biggest brand as a professional athlete, of course, right. Jordan. I mean, that's culture changing. Jordans, the whole Jordan brand. You got cats out there spending $12,000 for vintage Jordans, and he's still relevant 15 years after retirement.
I just admire the work ethic. Like, I just feel like regardless of the game results and the stats, you know, I feel like I was impressed with Kobe Bryant with the whole Mamba mentality. And then you see Michael Jordan and I'm like, oh, like it's a whole nother level. Like that dude got food poisoning and still pushed through. Like he didn't care. Like when he filmed, what's the movie, the cartoon he was in?
Space Jam.
Yeah. Like I was like, so dude, you were getting up at 6 a.m., filming Space Jam, then doing, practice, then having pickup games at night, then working out. Like, dude, when do you sleep? The only thing I thought was a problem for me with Last Dance was there was no interaction or mention of his family at all other than his father. And I thought that was disrespectful to the wife and to the kids because they helped him to be able to do what he did. And I feel like that's another side of Michael Jordan that if you're going to tell the story, you got to, like, how do you leave them out? And then I didn't like the director saying, not just, hey, we decided to go another route, but saying that they were unnecessary. Like, I just felt like to call somebody's wife and kids unnecessary was just disrespectful to me.
Well, because he couldn't do what he was doing as a family man if she wasn't holding down home.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. But you know what? Michael Jordan had a heavy hand, and basically it's his documentary. Right. So his lens. So he was able to tell the story the way he wanted to. But I agree with you. As I watched it, it did stick out to me that there was no admission of, I think it's Juanita, right? He talked about the kids, but he didn't talk about her. And I guess they had a very not so good breakup, and that's the reason behind it. But he couldn't do what he was doing with a peace of mind and peace of heart if she wasn't holding down the home front. I mean, it goes back and forth.
And it made me wonder, like, when you were doing all that with Space Jam, what was up with fatherhood? Like, it must be nice to take 6 months or a few months to film a movie and do all of that, but who's raising your kids? So then talking about MJ really didn't have the flu. So he did that to gain sympathy. Stop. MJ does not need anybody's sympathy. He was a beast. I just don't think that's true, Glenn. I can't believe it.
He might have played it up for the cameras. I don't know. That's what they do sometimes. It could be. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I send the correct information to Superintendent Laura Mitchell. We're scheduled, if you're just tuning in, we're scheduled to speak with her in about 9 minutes. I want to make sure she has the information. But let's move on. We have some other things we want to talk about. What's on your mind, Donnie B?
So FC Cincinnati, did y'all see that Turner Construction, which is the main construction contractor building the stadium, the soccer stadium, suspended all work construction because there was racial tension at the job site, made everybody do mandatory diversity and implicit bias training before they could come back to work, and then fired two or all the people that were involved in the racial incidents at the site. And I thought that was huge. Like, he was like, yo, racial discrimination will not be tolerated. Racial slurs will not be tolerated. So they are permanently banned from the site. Everybody is going to do, mandatory training on diversity and racism issues before we even go back to work. All construction was a halt. So I thought that was a good job on his part. But it made me wonder, the deeper issue is, why are there so many racial issues surrounding FC Cincinnati? Remember earlier this year, like in March, they had to fire the head coach because he was using racial slurs, tried to blame it on, he was rapping, lyrics to a song, but that turned out not to be true. And he had a whole bunch of racial issues with the players. And then turns out that there was also some issues with with OTR. Nobody wants them down there. So I just feel like they're plagued with race issues. And I want to talk about it real quick. Like, it seems like the racial issue just keeps surrounding this team.
Mm-hmm. It's like they're cursed, right? It's almost like a curse. I'm waiting for more information. I want to know what was said. I hope we get that information. What exactly was said. I understand in these racially sensitive times right now, I think it's the right thing to do, right? To cut relationship ties with anybody that's projecting something that you don't want to stand for, right? We saw that with Nick. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think that was part of it, but I also think he's like, look, my money. I need minority contractors and subcontractors to help me get these bids.
Right.
And, we don't need those type of problems, in my business life. So when that comes up, I got to nip it in the bud. Like, I heard Turner Construction was passing out Black Lives Matter paraphernalia on the job site. Like, he's serious. Mm-hmm. He's like, I support y'all 100% because I want this money.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that if they really want to claim that, and again, I don't know the details about Turner. I do know that they said that they met their minimum quota, and I think it went over a little bit, their minority commitment. Passing out t-shirts and firing people is cool, but I'm all about money in the pocket. So that means working with Black contractors, working with Black independent contractors, and making sure they're getting a part of the pie.
Right.
That's the Black bank accounts matter, right? Black businesses matter. That's when it really matters.
Oh, Amina says she don't think that it's necessarily true that they suspended all construction. She lives, one of her friends lives across the street and said they saw less construction workers, but it wasn't completely stopped. That's interesting. It was only supposed to be for 2 days. So I wonder what day Amina, your friend, saw that. Hello, is there somebody on the line? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. It's Superintendent Mitchell. Hi, how are you?
No, this is her assistant.
Okay, looks like she's talking with somebody. I just sent the link to him, Donnie.
Can you check it again and see if you have it now? Nathan Ivy said he just resent it again.
Hold on, folks. We're trying to get Superintendent Mitchell on.
Hang on and see.
Just give us 1 second.
Yep. All right. Sounds good.
Professional soccer players around the world that are Black, brown, catch it really bad with the racial tensions.
They do. We go to the games and, it's racial slurs sometimes when they don't, score or make what the fans perceive to be a mistake or a misstep. And then even my son, I had to tell him, even though soccer, is a black sport, to me, if you really are into soccer, you know that Pele, who's a black Brazilian, is the number one soccer player of all time. He's the MJ of soccer. And I had to remind my son, because we play select soccer and it's mostly white kids because it's expensive and a lot of black people can't afford it. And my son is usually the only African-American not on the team, but he might be one of three in a tournament full of, 2,000 kids. So it's different. We haven't had a whole bunch of racial slurs or anything like that, but the discrimination and who makes the team, who plays striker, who's the center attacking mid, that type of stuff is what we get. It's a rough sport.
Real, even on the playing field.
Yep.
Damn shame.
It is.
Sports is a meritocracy. Until you start playing sports, you realize that's just BS.
Pretty much. Amina said that they got a Black Lives Matter flag flying on the construction site of FC Cincinnati now. What do y'all think about that? Is it just me? Is that like the mural downtown on Plum Street, or does that mean something?
I mean, don't get me talking. I mean, I would instead of having a Black Lives Matter flag over the construction site, I would have preferred that they had more equity and tangibles in the community, agreement that they had with the West End. But that's just me. You know what I'm saying? That's what really matters. The tangibles, like the dollars, like what are you actually delivering? But again, I mean, I guess the symbolic gestures mean something to some people.
To some people. Looks like we had Superintendent Laura Mitchell is there. How you doing, Superintendent Laura Mitchell? Can you hear us?
Hi.
Hey, what's going on? Doing great. Doing great. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Can you hear me pretty well?
We do hear you pretty well. Sounds pretty good.
Good.
Hey,
Yep.
we got the same color on today. Great minds think alike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how are you? First of all, I feel like we got a lot of questions, but before we bombard you, I just want to say that I appreciate everything that you're trying to do. And when I heard you speak on Monday, I realized, and I realized this when you spoke on my show a couple of weeks ago, it's a lot. And so as a parent, I'm not going to lie, I've been blowing you up like, what is she doing? Is she doing this? Is she doing that? And then I realized oh, she's doing the most. So I just want to say thank you. Even though, we got some kinks that we got to work out, I do recognize this is a unique experience that you probably never thought you'd have to deal with as superintendent. And you've been basically busting your behind since April to try to figure this stuff out and work with all the moving parts. So if nobody else says it, I just want to say, before we get into it, thank you for your service. I get it, sister. I see the hustle. It's unreal. I would have quit. I'm not going to lie. I would have quit. I appreciate you. I don't want to think you're ungrateful. I recognize on Monday that it's not a game. You got a lot on your plate. So I was like, man, she probably has not breathed. She is in here from probably 6 to 6, like working it out.
Right. Well, I second that, obviously, as a parent, and I'm a parent of a CPS, 2 children, actually. One at Walnut Hills, one will be entering kindergarten this fall. Sometimes you get caught up with your issues. You can't see the other side of it. I try to.
Uh-oh.
But I mean, how do you foresee having to shut down the school? So I appreciate your work as well. And also your time this morning. And I will say this very quickly. I know you were doing a podcast. If you ever decide to bring it back up, you should hit up Sin Digital. We elevate Black voices in the city of Cincinnati, and we'll do you a great service. So I want to put that out there.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for just acknowledging the work. I would love to take credit for it, but it's not me. So we work with a fabulous team of teachers and administrators and all of our civil service people. And so, everybody just came out to help our kids in our community. So a big thank you to the entire CPS community, including parents. So thank you.
Appreciate that as a parent. Well, we put our heads together, and Donnie and I decided that I think the best way to start is just acknowledging that there might be some information deficit that's going on. Like, not everyone may have got a chance to be a part of the live stream on Monday. They may not have gotten all of the news. So we would just ask that you kind of briefly give us the overview of what the plans are for reopening the Cincinnati Public Schools for people that either missed it or might have missed some of it.
Sure. So in June, we gave the board a whole range of things to consider. Going back 5 days a week, all kids, going completely remote, and then hybrids. And so then the board decided on a 2-3 model, which allows 6 feet of social distancing with mask wearing. And so in order to have 6 feet of social distancing with the number of kids we have and the size of the classrooms, we could only have about half the kids on any given day, which is the reason we were going to a 3-2-3 model. So 1 week, if I'm a kid, I'm in school 2 days a week, and the next week I'm in 3 days a week. And so only half of my peers are there at a given time. And so that's the model that the board voted on. But the board always had the agreement that we would come back on August the 3rd to look at the data for our city. So every day, twice a day, I get a dashboard from the city of Cincinnati with COVID number results. So it'll tell me the number of confirmed cases by zip code, by neighborhood. It will tell me the number of people who have died and the number of people who are being hospitalized. And so we look at that information to help give the board the direction as to whether or not we should really go full force in terms of being in face-to-face.
Okay.
So we looked at, and I'll be very quick about this, but this is really important for people to know. We looked at the turnaround time to get your test results, which is about a 7 to 14 day turnaround time. So that's a pretty long span of time that you could actually have COVID and not know it. And so we need that. We believe there should be a quicker turnaround time for testing.
Right.
The other thing is, of the people who are tested, 7.7% turn out to be positive, which it sounds low, but it's not as low as we need it to be. We think it should be within the 5 to 6% range. And then there's also the fact that right now, every day I get the number of confirmed cases, and those numbers are going up and down, up and down. So the system is not very stable, and we believe that we need to see at least 14 days of the data trending down in terms of confirmed cases to say that it's safe to have people come back. So we look at all of that in addition to the governor's color coding of yellow, orange, red, and purple. And we are at level 3, which is red. So we are one step away from being purple. And so with all of those factors, it seemed that the likely recommendation to the board is that we open in a distance learning to begin the first 5 weeks of the school year. And then in 5 weeks, we'll look to see if we can possibly move by the end of the year, the end of September, into face-to-face with 2 to 3 days, because we know that the best education for our kids, it's when they're with their teacher and when they're with their classmates.
Okay. Now, I wanted to ask you the glaring question in the room that I thought of on Monday, which is, but why make a decision mid-quarter? Why not just call it for the whole quarter and say, you know what, for the first entire quarter at least, we're going to be 100% virtual, and we'll revisit at the end of the quarter or even the end of semester like Columbus? What was the thought process behind 5 weeks as opposed to just the whole quarter?
I really don't want to give up an entire quarter of not having the kids face-to-face if we can make a pivot to do that. And so what I don't want to do is say for a whole quarter we're going to be out of session and not face-to-face. And if the data changes, we should be able to move back, because we still believe that that is the best place for our kids, is to be with their teachers and to be with their friends, as long as it's safe. And so if we can do it 5 weeks as opposed to 9 weeks, I'd much rather do that, especially because in a call that I was with, I was on a call with the governor on Saturday with a small group of superintendents. And earlier that morning, the governor had been talking with someone who does modeling across the nation in terms of pandemic planning. And the national expert said that in November, December, and January, it is very likely that we will not be able to have face-to-face instruction.
Right. So that was my thought. Like, so are we going to, be online for 5 weeks, then go back to the blended model, and then only a month later turn around and be virtual again? Then what are we doing? Is that too much back and forth with the kids and the parents? We got childcare issues. We got homeschool issues. Like, it seems to be too much back and forth.
Yeah. So I can see how it is back and forth, and we're going to have some town halls with parents and be able to talk with them about it. But before we have to close down in November, if that's the case, for 3 months, I want to do as much front loading with those kids and the teacher so that the kids are truly ready for a complete remote for 3 months, if that's the case. So even if I can get the kids back with their teachers for 4 to 5 weeks, I would much rather do that than stay in a complete digital or distance learning. So we want to front load as much information as we possibly can and as many routines as we possibly can. We want to have a very, very strong start to the first 5 weeks of the school year to set our kids up for success. Because at the end of the day, and I know you all know this, we still need life to go on. We need our kids to graduate. We need for them to be able to go to college, go into the military, go into the world, or whatever it is that they want to do. But I've got to be laying that foundation all along the way before we have to move into complete remote for 3 months, if that's the case. We'll hear from parents during our town halls, and we'll ask that question. So I'm writing that down. It's a great one. Thank you.
Have those town hall times and dates been established?
So the first one has been scheduled for Monday, August the 10th, and I believe the time is 4 o'clock. But I'll get back to you because we're going to be scheduling some additional town halls for families as well. The board they've been having a lot of board meetings with hearing of the public, but oftentimes the slots are taken up by people who aren't parents. And so we want to have a town hall just for parents to hear from our parents. So we'll come out with more dates, but I'll send you the information about the upcoming town halls for parents.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Nate, you want to go ahead with some of your pressing questions? I don't know.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I have a kindergartner who is going to be going to CPS for the first time. We were looking forward to all that stuff, buying a backpack and getting his lunch and dropping him off. But now it's going to be different. Can you kind of talk about the expectations for kindergartners, for first graders, and primarily those kindergartners, and also what resources will be available for parents? I'm in a privileged position where COVID-19, of course, affects all of us, but we're going to be able to provide, whether that's in-home or out-of-the-home services for our children. But again, I realize I'm in a privileged position. There's a lot of parents not in that position. What resources will CPS have available? I know you may have talked about this already, but again, I know there's an information deficit out there, and I want to close it for our audience.
Okay, excellent. So the distance learning will look significantly different than what our parents and our kids experience in the winter and in the fall, because we've had a long time to plan. Okay. So we were closed really quickly before, and so we've had a much better plan in place moving forward. So first of all, for preschool and kindergarten, this might be their first introduction to school because some of our kindergartners did not go to preschool. And so we're planning for pre-K through third grade an orientation for kids and parents in very small groups so that kids can meet their teacher, the parents can meet their teachers, and also be able to get access to all of the materials that we're going to give our young people. So we're going to send a lot of stuff home with our young people so that they have the technology, the devices. So for pre-K through first grade, we'll have iPads, and then second through 12th grade, we're going to provide laptop computers for those kids. So we have them, they're being distributed right now at the schools, but if parents miss their distribution date, then we're also going to give them out during those orientations. But we believe that the orientation for pre-K through third grade should be face-to-face with the parent and the teacher and the child. And so that actually came through as a suggestion from the president from our teachers union, that should be face-to-face, and we agree with that. And so we'll be sending out some information very soon where parents can sign up for that face-to-face session for pre-K through third grade. And then our plan for 4th through 12th grade is to bring the kids into school in very, very small numbers to do an orientation with them in terms of how to use the devices, how to access the online and digital curriculum, and how to have the Google Meet sessions with the teachers. So at the elementary level, so pre-K through 6th grade, the teachers will be using a platform, but they will also be using Google Meet to be able to talk with the kids and to do their work with them. At the high school level, kids will actually be scheduled into classes, so scheduled into bells, in which the teacher will have the Google Meet session set up, and the kids go right into it just like they would if they were walking into the classroom physically. We are concerned, though, about the amount of screen time that the kids will have access to. And so we're not going to schedule kids for example, 6 hours of screen time on a given day. So the blocks may be longer, but with fewer classes each day.
Okay. That was a question. That was going to be my follow-up, the screen time being an issue, and what would be the requirement, really, what would be the expectation for those younger students on a daily basis? Any idea? Are we talking 2 or 3 hours of screen time? I'm just, again, as a parent, I'm just curious.
Yes. So we're thinking that the kids should probably be engaged in some face-to-face work for about 3 hours, but those 3 hours, it could be broken up throughout the day.
I see.
So you have to be back to back all at one time.
Do you foresee this as something that is hands off for parents? With the Zoom calls, the Google meetups with the teachers, do you think that kindergarten should be self-sufficient in doing this after a short time, or will they need parent assistance, throughout the process?
I think that, initially they're going to need some parental assistance. Our kindergartners, preschoolers, the kids coming up now, they are digital natives. So they've grown up with technology.
Right.
For me, I would have probably had to have my mother sit down beside me all along the way.
Right.
But I do think that as much as parents can get engaged and at least see what's going on, that's helpful. But we're going to sit up and make it really simple and easy for parents, because many parents are not teachers. And so it's difficult. And I can say for myself, it was hard. I was trying to do my work from home. I had a fourth grader. I was trying to get her on, log her on. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I have an education background. And so again, we're bringing our teachers in a week ahead of time. We're doing a lot of training because we have to make sure that we're making this super easy for our parents and for our kids.
I want to talk about the Cincinnati Digital Academy. And so, as you know, that's the option that was most attractive for me and what I was thinking of doing with my son. And the deadline for us to decide if we're going to start with our kids at CDA versus our homeschool is on Monday, August the 10th. But there's still zero information about the curriculum, the customized Walnut Hills curriculum and the customized curriculum for the other high schools that have things going on, what courses, etc. And so I feel like there's more concentration by the district on trying to do the blended model. But I feel like CDA and the logistics for that and the information for that is being neglected. So with the deadline being August 10th and us parents still not having any details about CDA, when are we going to get those details, and when are those plans going to be finalized is my first question. And then are you willing to push the August 10th deadline back so that us parents can make an informed decision? Right now, we've got nothing.
Absolutely. So we'll be pushing out a lot more information about CDA. The deadline was originally set for August the 10th, and that's when our town hall is taking place. And so we're going to be able to push it back. The reason that we set it at August the 10th is we were trying to see the number of parents who are interested so that we could have staffing in place. Because we already know we're going to have to hire and have more teachers move over to CDA or hire more staff. So we're trying to come up with a deadline so that we know the staffing. But I completely understand that the parents need a lot more information. And so we'll extend the deadline and get more information out. I will say that since we're starting with distance learning, what may be a good idea for parents to consider is not to enroll in CDA, but stay with your child's homeschool. So you'll have access to the teachers and the curriculum and the special programming at the home school. And so it'll be distance learning. And then at the point that we go back to school 2 to 3 days a week, let's say it's 5 weeks from now, let's say it's at the end of September, let's say it's October, then and parents still don't feel comfortable sending their child back into face-to-face, then we can very easily switch them over to CDA and make sure that there's an alignment with the curriculum. So we want to make
sure. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to get this important question out for me and for a few of the viewers have asked me this. So our concern is, for example, for Walnut, my son is required to take Latin 3. So we start at Walnut, in the beginning of the school year, like you suggest, and then 5 weeks from now, you go to blended. We don't feel comfortable, so now we want to go to CDA. If CDA doesn't offer Latin, then what happens to my son? Like, how do I do that?
Yes. So we are making arrangements for those specialized courses that may not be offered at CDA because maybe there aren't enough kids who need that class to constitute an entire teacher. We're making arrangements to know what the young people's schedules are and then being able to connect them back to their homeschool teacher for that course.
Oh, nice. So he could still do online for Latin 3 and then just do everything else on CDA's platform.
Correct. So we're trying to really work with parents and make it easy and also make sure that we don't harm our kids through this entire experience because it's not their fault.
Now, will you have enough teachers? Because we're not notifying you. Like if I do, like you say, and I start out at Walnut, and then 5 weeks from now, when you reopen, I decide I want to do CDA. How are you planning for that? Because you don't know how many of us will do that in September.
Yeah, so we're building our numbers, our staffing off of the number that we have right now. So each year we have about 400 kids who are enrolled in CDA. Right now we have an additional 300 parents who have said they are going to sign on to CDA. We're going to contact those parents to make sure that they still want to stay there since we're going with distance. And if they want to switch and stay at their home school, that they can do that as well. So we're banking on the current staffing for 700 kids right now. If the kids move back to their home school, then we will just adjust the staffing and move teachers back to the home school to be able to address kids. So the system that we're building has to be very fluid and people have to be willing to change. And maybe one day you're teaching at CDA and the next day you're back at a school, but it's what's required during this time.
Okay. Nate?
Well, can you walk us through the school day? I know you talked about this on Monday. You know, when they go back to in-person learning, you talked a little bit about this on Monday during the live stream. Can you reiterate that for us, please? Like, what does that look like in terms of making sure that things are clean and what we can expect, you know, when our children, the students, return back to the school?
Yes. So there is a district safety plan that each school has, and they customize it for their school, but there are some non-negotiables, and I'll go through what those are. And those non-negotiables are according to the CDC guidelines, the 31 CDC guidelines. And then each school has to have a safety team made up of all the roles in the school along with the principal, and they work through that safety plan. Each principal has to then meet with central office, a team of central office facilities people to go through their safety plan to get the approval on their plan. And so that's what we put in plan for the month of July and what we've been working through. And then there were those of us who said, you know what, we got to feel it and see it for ourselves. And so on Monday, a team from central office, including myself, 5 people from the health department, as well as Children's Hospital, we walked 4 buildings, 2 elementary and 2 high schools to see the procedures in place, to learn what we need to do to perfect them, and then also use that information to inform the other schools. So what parents can expect is when we return to face-to-face, if their child is riding a bus, that they must enter the bus with a mask. If they do not have a mask, then a mask will be given to them for the bus. The kids will be spread apart on the bus because only about half the kids will be riding the bus at any given time because only half the kids will be there. We're going to separate them in terms of their seating. If you're coming from the same household, then you can share the same seat. But if you do not come from the same household, you can't share the same seat. When you get to school, then coming in the door will be a temperature check. If you have a fever, which is we're considering 100.4, then you will automatically be separated out and will be sent to a containment room so that a registered nurse can check you out. All of our schools currently last school year, we had 33 registered nurses in our schools. For the upcoming school year, every single school will have its own registered nurse. We're getting those nurses through the health department. And then you will go to your classroom. As soon as you enter, you get your temperature check. If you don't have a mask, you will be given a mask. And then you go to a hand sanitizing station. You do your hand sanitizing, then you go to pick up your breakfast. So breakfast now will be at a kiosk. It will not be in the lunchroom, so that we've been asked by the CDC not to gather people in large rooms or large crowds. You will get your breakfast, and then you will go to your class. their social distancing in the classroom. So we went and we looked at the setup of classrooms. We looked at how much furniture needs to be in the room, how much needs to come out. We counted across the floors, the squares, the tiles to say that this is 6 feet so that we can create the 6 feet of social distancing. The board will be working on passing a policy requiring everyone to wear a mask within our buildings. And so that's the process that we have set now. Lunchtime, students will not go to the cafeteria in large groups to eat lunch. That will again be done within the classrooms. Anytime a student leaves the room and they come back into the room, they have to go back through hand sanitizing to make sure that they aren't bringing any germs, because we're trying to keep the classrooms, the whole building, as sterile as possible. We will then also ask the kid, who did they come in contact with while they were out? So in case we have to do any contact tracing. Any child who is exhibiting, or any adult in the building who is exhibiting any symptoms will automatically have to go to the containment room, and they will be there until the nurse has the opportunity to check them out. For those kids who are sick, who have a fever, cough, any of the symptoms that are on the CDC's list, and we will immediately contact the parent and ask that they come and get them. We are not allowing visitors into the schools because we want to really make sure that we're keeping our kids safe. Parents will obviously be allowed into the schools, but they will not be able to go any further than the front office because, again, we want to limit the exposure that our kids will have. Right. If your child receives any kind of therapy within school, then we will allow that to happen. So mental health services, occupational therapy. But again, we're trying to keep it a very tight-knit group of people who are actually in the buildings working with our kids. We're not going to even allow tutors in. Tutors will have to work with them virtually. And so we're really trying to make sure that we have good control over the environment. And so all of this that we've put in place has been with the guidance of CDC, the Cincinnati Health Department, and Cincinnati Children's Hospital.
What about therapists? Will that be a virtual interaction as well?
We will allow therapists to come in because sometimes it's harder to deliver the therapy through a digital platform, but we are requiring that anyone who is providing any services for our students, that they go through all of those safety checks. There's also, I didn't mention, a health assessment before you come to school. So do you have a fever? Have you been in contact with someone who has COVID? And so have you been to any of the states that are on the hot list in terms of quarantining before you can come back to the state of Ohio? So we go through all of that. We first started to open the Ed Center in May to test all these processes out before we would then open the schools. We have flow charts that tell exactly what happens if there's a suspected case. If there's a confirmed case, we follow the CDC guidelines. We notify everyone, and then we also have the opportunity to either close down that entire school or close down that classroom. So we are always going to err on the side of caution and make sure that people are fully aware of what's happening. We've also looked at our ventilation system. We are pumping more air, fresh air from outside into the schools and then air back out of the schools. We have a system set up that if we have a confirmed case in a particular classroom or a zone, that we can immediately go to the filter system for that zone, remove all the filters, replace them. And so we are, like I said, we're working with the health department and Cincinnati Children's to walk us through all of these steps to ensure the safety of everyone who's in our school.
So
one last quick question, and back to Donnie. Real quick, you mentioned outdoor spaces. Is there a district policy in terms of using the outdoor spaces? I know the governor has suggested that the schools use them as much as possible, or will that be a school by school decision?
No, it'll be a district decision, so that we want to make sure that we have equity across, across the entire district. At one point in time, we were asked to take down our basketball rims and to not have people on our tracks. And that was because we were still really high in terms of our numbers and in terms of confirmed cases. But we've been able to loosen that up with sports in terms of people being able to condition and train. And so we want to encourage people to get outside, to enjoy the fresh air. And when we do return to face-to-face, to have as many of our sessions outside enjoying, the fresh air as possible.
Okay. I'm looking at some of the questions from the audience. So one key question, I have two, is can you talk about what the grading policy is going to be this fall, and then how you're going to handle the standardized testing for like the third graders and the sixth graders that have mandatory standardized testing.
Yes. So last year, standardized testing was waived for the state of Ohio, so there weren't any standardized testing other than in the fall, the third graders took the third grade guarantee test, but that was before COVID hit. But there weren't any tests for the state of Ohio in the spring. The state has not said just yet whether or not they're going to have standardized testing as of yet. What we plan to do is give an assessment through a digital platform just to see where our kids are, because remember, they weren't in face-to-face session the last 10 weeks of the school year. So we want to see where they are so that we can pick up where they are, but not just do intervention. We need to accelerate their learning and move them as fast as possible, because again, we need our kids to be successful and thrive and be able to graduate and do well. In terms of grading, because we had to close schools so quickly last winter and spring, we didn't require the assignments to be graded because we weren't sure if the kids all got their packets, if they all had access to technology. But since we're providing the technology and the Wi-Fi now, the assignments will be graded. And so there is a different level of accountability for our young people. We will work with them, but we want to send them a message that this work is important, and so it will receive grades.
Now, what about, and for me, it's easy because I work from home, or I have the ability to work from home and help my son. But what do you say to the parents where they're like, hey, my kid is going to be at home, but they're going to be at home by themselves, or you provided a computer, but you know, there's nobody there to help manage it because I'm at work. So is it fair to grade their stuff when they don't have the level of parental supervision and academic support that we normally would have? Because I'm going to be honest with you, Superintendent Mitchell, there were teachers that said, hey, if you have any questions, contact me. But while I was trying to contact them and get my son's questions answered, deadlines were passing us by. So they had to be flexible and allow us to, you know, miss a deadline, waiting on a callback, waiting on a Zoom, session to be set up, a help night to be done. What about all those aspects?
Yes. So again, this will look different than it did in the spring and last winter. And so we're going to be flexible with our young people, but really encourage and have more staff on hand to contact our kids to make sure that they're getting connected and that they're doing their work. So, you know, I'm not going to lie and say this is going to be easy and it's going to be perfect and it's going to be extremely smooth, but I think it'll be much better than what we saw last year. Everyone did, quite honestly, the very best that they could in a situation that was just unplanned for. But now that with the plan that we've been able to do, I think we'll be in a better position. We will offer additional support for kids who won't have adults at home being able to work with them and help them.
What's that additional support going to look like?
So we have paraprofessionals who will be in our buildings now, who will have access to technology, who can call parents, they can call kids, they can get on Google Meet sessions with them, they can hold small group instruction. And so that happened last year to a small degree, and it was sporadic, depending upon the technology that the paraprofessionals had at home. But now the paraprofessionals will be in our buildings with social distancing and being able to use our technology and our equipment to be able to work with students. And we will be tracking each one of our students down in terms of those that we have not been able to connect with. And so the accountability is a lot higher on our side as well as for our kids because we need them to learn. And so we have a lot more supports in place to be able to help them.
So somebody's asking, what are the consequences if people don't adhere to the safety rules? Like, for example, you know, I do have strong concerns about kids being required to wear a mask, you know, for 7.5 hours per day. I can barely finish a grocery store run with my mask on. So what happens if the kids don't follow, you know, these rules because they're uncomfortable?
Sure. So one of the things that we're going to do when we come back face to face is that we're going to have mask breaks. So a time when you can take off your mask for a little while in an isolated area to get just a break from working and being able to talk in a mask. What we're going to do is we're going to really involve our kids in this community campaign about It's our responsibility to be our brother's keeper and keep our neighborhoods and our schools and our communities safe. And one of the ways that we can do that right now is to wear a mask. And so it's our social responsibility to do that. We're going to do a lot of work with our kids to make it positive and cool to wear a mask. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it's just the world that we're living in right now. For those people who don't adhere to the protocols that we're putting in place, we will have a parent hotline as well as an employee hotline, so that people can report things that aren't in place that the district is requiring to keep everyone safe. It is not our intent to have these really big punitive measures for our young people if they don't wear a mask or if they don't wear it properly, but it is to teach them and instruct them the importance and the reason why we need to have this in place. And it is not something that we can compromise on.
So what does that mean? Like, I don't want my son getting the detention because he wants to give a friend a hug. Like, I feel like out of sight, out of mind. Right now, he's not really worried about his friends at his school because he's not seeing them. But socially, you're asking these kids to go back to school. It sounds like because the socialization of our kids is what you guys are considering important. But then my son has to go back to school and see people that he loves and cares about, and he can't touch them. He can't go to lunch with them. He's stuck in the classroom. He has ADHD where he can't move around for 7.5 hours a day now. So there's no break, where he can, go in the hallway and reset. He can't go to the football field the way he normally would do and do a lot of things that he does to reset and come back into the classroom. I don't want my son in Saturday school every week because he's struggling with this new normal.
Sure. And we can absolutely work through that, not just for your child, but look at it from a holistic system level. We are looking at ways, though, to engage our kids in social distancing that's enjoyable. Because, for example, as you said, when you go to lunch, it's a social time. You talk during lunch. You sit with your friends during lunch. And, eating is a social activity. At this point in time, though, we can't let it be a social activity only because where we are with COVID. It's unfortunate, but that's the situation we're in. We can't allow kids to hug one another, to share materials, to share balls, to share pens and crayons and pencils. It's just the world that we're living in at this moment. And if everyone
mental health issues as a response to that, like, are the counselors ready for those type of issues? I feel like right now my son is okay, but I wonder mentally what'll happen to him when he goes back to school and those are the new normals. Can he make the mental health adjustment?
Yes. So, we're very concerned about that. We have mental health providers in all of our schools who will be there working with our families. Mind Peace, they have come, this organization, they have really done a fabulous job of making sure that we have mental health providers for us. We have a lot of social and emotional learning components and people who are coming to help us with those things. We have something called Mindful Moments, which is music therapy that allows the kids to be able to get up and move and meditate to music. And so there are a lot of partners who are coming together because we are concerned about our kids' mental well-being during this time. But we're also very, very concerned about the mental well-being of our kids when they're at home for long periods of time. And so again, it's a community outreach. Everyone, please wear your mask, do the social distancing. If you are sick, stay at home so that we can open our schools in a safe way and get our kids back to school in a way that feels normal to them, where they can then have, conversations and engage with one another and be able to touch one another. At this moment, we can't do that. And it's going to take an entire community for that to be able to happen, for us to get our kids back in session. But we believe that having them home for long periods of time could hurt them emotionally and socially as well.
Since we're on the subject, Superintendent Mitchell, I'm concerned about the mental well-being of teachers and admins, because their well-being will have a huge impact in their interactions with our children and the students. So what kind of resources are going to be made available for teachers, for staff, for admin as well? And this is a two-parter. And the second part kind of takes us away from COVID-19. I'm also aware of the implicit bias push for policies with CPS. And I'm wondering, will this be made mandatory? I know you already do it with the staff, but as I understand it, and please disabuse me if I'm wrong, correct me, but it's not mandatory. Will it be made mandatory?
So I'll address your first question around the mental health and well-being of our staff members. So our talent development department is working on professional development and resources, coaching opportunities, support for our teachers and anyone who works with our kids, because you're absolutely right. If they aren't in a good place mentally, it's going to transfer to our kids. And so that will be ongoing. Our teachers will be back to school in our buildings a week before the 24th of August. So on the 17th, we're going to do a lot of front loading of work then. How do you care for yourself before you can care for someone else? And we'll continue to do that throughout the school year to take care of our people. So then let me switch over to anti-racism and the push in CPS. So where we are right this moment is the board is working on an anti-racist policy that they will be approving very soon. About 4 or 5 years ago, the board approved an equity resolution and policy. And so that's something that we've been working through. And it speaks to equity in a lot of different fronts, which we will continue that work. However, more specifically, though, we're talking about race. And so that's the new piece that I think that you'll see that'll be a lot more prevalent in our school district. And when I say you'll see it a lot more prevalent as a focus, this is beyond a professional development. So this is not about, let me send you to competency training or cultural awareness. No, it's not about a PD. It's about looking at policies. It's about looking at practices. It's about looking at spending. It's about looking at curriculum. And so we have put together a high school group of high school students representing each of our high schools to serve on a superintendent student council. And I asked them to make some demands of the district. Tell us what it is that you want to see in our school district. And there are some things that have already bubbled to the top. And first of all, they want to see themselves represented in our curriculum.
Right.
They want to see
Black History Month agenda. And I was like, okay, Principal Chambers, you're an African-American principal. And I can't believe that the school had no African-American studies or Black History Month mandatory curriculum. But my son's teacher spent 3 months on the Holocaust. And I'm like, I'm Black. Like, seriously? So we got a Black president of the school board. We have a Black superintendent. My son is an African-American principal and no Black History Month. For Black History Month, there was no African-American studies curriculum at all. Will that change this year?
You will see a lot more African-American studies integrated throughout all of our subject areas.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just social studies. I mean, there are many African-Americans who have contributed to science and mathematics. So it's not going to just be relegated to social studies. Mm-hmm. Language arts, English language arts. Our kids say they want to see themselves in the books that they're reading. Right. And so in terms of curriculum, we're going to be doing some revamping of the curriculum as it relates to African-American studies. Our young people also said that they want to build better relationships with the police. And so I've had a conversation with the chief of police as well as some of the officers. And so we're working on that. Our young people host a show called Speak Up, Speak Out. And they had the police chief come on and speak with them. And he is very open to working with us. So they said that the police, they wanted to work on that. They also wanted to look at the curriculum, and they wanted to look at, believe it or not, this was interesting. They brought up the contracts that we have with vendors.
Yes.
And so we have a team who's working on that. And so curriculum is one area that we're working on. We're also working on contracts. So for example, right now we have a session that is set up with the African American Chamber, where we have an event day where they have been given the contracts that we most use. So for example, the services that we purchase are products, and then they align them with companies that are associated with the African American Chamber that can provide those products and services. And so we're hosting a session in August for those businesses to come and sit virtually with the manager or director for each one of those contract areas, and they can be interviewed so that we can get more contracts in our district that are specifically owned by African American businesses. We're going to do the same thing with the Urban League because I found out that all of the businesses aren't necessarily registered with the African American Chamber. Some are with the Urban League, so we're doing the Urban League as well. Some are with Mortar, so we're doing Mortar as well. So we're making our rounds trying to catch all the different venues in which we know where African American businesses come together. Whether it's a veteran business or less veteran business. And so that's what we're doing. And then we're looking at practices, access and opportunities for our kids to extracurricular activities, advanced placement courses, grading practices, discipline practices. And so we are pulling all of that together into a project plan, and we're going to work with an external consultant who's going to be working with us. And so you'll see some changes happen, but it's not about, let me just go to do this professional development. It's
what about Black teachers and principals? Like, my son has been in CPS since kindergarten. He's had 2 African American teachers ever his whole life. So is that going to change? Same thing with the principals. Like, Principal Chambers is Black, but all the other principals at Walnut are white. Most of them white female. That's a problem. My interaction with them, I can tell that race is a barrier when I interact with them. Same thing at Oakdale. Race was a barrier with the principals and the teachers there. So are we going to do anything to address those type of issues?
So we have been, for years, the board has challenged us to look at staffing and specifically looking at African American teachers and administrators in our district. And so we have a recruiting team, and that recruiting team have been trying to recruit African Americans to Cincinnati. And when we don't just go to the colleges and universities, we go to the historically Black colleges and universities. And what we have been finding is that there aren't a lot of African Americans who are going into the field of education. They're choosing other fields. And so last year, as a result of that, we decided to start a grow your own program through our teachers, through our paraprofessionals, and also through students. So we started a program at Aiken High School for those kids. For Aiken students who are interested in going into the field of education, and a professor from Miami came and taught them, and we'll continue that. And the idea is that they will get some of their coursework done in high school, graduate from CPS, be admitted into Miami, graduate from Miami, and come back to Cincinnati Public. We believe that this might be the best way. It's a longer term process, but African Americans are not going into the field of education. As a matter of fact, there's a national teacher shortage, period.
Oh, wow.
So people are not going into the field of education.
Staying in the anti-racism piece for a second more. My daughter attends Walnut Hills as well. And it's just been amazing, Superintendent Mitchell. I mean, not to get any details in this particular space, but I mean, I've had interactions with parents who speak in hushed tones, who are afraid to talk about their interactions, with the school with their child attends because they're afraid of retaliation. And when I've spoken with them, what comes back is their frustration with not being able to get in contact with people above the principal level. I myself have had those same frustrations. I think that's all a part of the anti-racism piece because Black parents are the first advocates for their children. And it feels as if sometimes there are barriers put in even just voicing your issues, which in a lot of cases can be very legitimate. What's being done to address this?
So we're starting with our town halls with parents, and we'll continue those town halls. We will also continue outreach to parents in general. We are open, though, to getting ideas from parents about what's the best way for us to connect with you, because what we think may not be the best way. We try social media, we try emailing, phone calls, but we want to hear from parents. How do you want us to connect with you? And I think it's our obligation, and we just need to do a much better job of getting back with and connecting with our parents. And so I'm open to ideas and suggestions.
I think the LSDMC model is broken. And basically white parents get put on that board and Black parents don't. And parents that express concerns to the principals and teachers at the school that are basically, we're labeled as troublemakers. So we don't get elected and appointed to those positions for you to get feedback. So I do feel like there's a tendency to think that the voice of the LSDMC represents the entire or the majority voice in CPS, and it doesn't. So I'm thinking if you're looking for ideas, I would like to see a diversity group where Black parents have a space to bring the issues that are unique to African American parents directly to you somehow, because LSDMC is white controlled and our voice is not being heard in that space. So I think you need to have something where Black parents with Black students, we make up, majority of the school, but our voice to me gets heard the least, which I think is crazy. So I would like to see something where we have our own direct channel to be able to express our concerns that are unique to African Americans, like issues that we have with, the preschool to prison pipeline, the over discipline of our kids, the negative interactions that we have with white administrators, all those things. I think we got to bypass LSDMC and have a direct channel to you, because I have found in my own personal circumstance that once I got to you and your team were responsive, but it took so much to get there, Ms. Mitchell.
Right.
Like by the time I got to you, 4 or 5 months had passed with me trying to work through everybody else to get there. So kudos to you. You are responsive, but it just takes me too long to get to you.
Sure.
So we need something else.
Yes, absolutely. Love the idea, and I will get it going. So yes, and we'll probably reach out to you all to help connect and get parents to serve and come and be a part of it. So
absolutely. I know you have a lot of time, Ms. Mitchell, so I did want to ask you one key thing for people to be looking out for. So I remembered when it comes back to COVID, you mentioned, the factors that you considered that caused you to say, hey, for the first 5 weeks, we got to be virtual. So I kind of want to talk about what those numbers would have to look like for you to decide to reopen. So for example, testing. Right now, it's 7 to 14-day wait. What is it? How much faster does that have to be for you to reopen? What color do we have to be on the spectrum? And what positivity rate do we have to have before you to feel comfortable to do the blended model?
Yes. So I say the positivity rate, and it's really not like me, Laura Mitchell, saying it. It's in collaboration with healthcare professionals who are guiding us along the way. So every week I have a meeting on Wednesday today with physicians from Children's Hospital who are looking at our data for the city, for the region, and then giving us advice. And so we believe we need to be in the 5 to 6 range for positivity rate.
Okay.
We believe that we need to be not necessarily out of the red, but yellow or orange would be the best place to be. It just depends on how far we are on the red in terms of those indicators, because the governor's office came out with the new grading system range system within the colors. But we would love to be in the orange or the yellow. And then we want to be able to see at least 14 days, consecutive days of cases trending downward.
Now, when you say trending downward, so my thought is right now we're at 1,500 cases a day. So trending downward could be, next, for 14 days, we're at 1,200, which is a downward. But we started out in March at 450. So how far downward of a downward trend are you guys targeting for or hoping to see?
Yeah, so we would be looking at a curve. And so there's an epidemiology curve that we would be looking at to see when we look at that curve, it's over months. And so we can look back to see where we were in March compared to where we are now. And we're looking to see a steady trend down, and not just a trend down, but significantly reducing the number of confirmed cases for our area. So I don't have a specific number for you, but we're looking at over the entire time frame. And I wish I had the paper right in front of me because I looked at it earlier today. But we literally look at it every day, twice a day, and seeing where we are. But again, we won't be making the recommendations to the board in isolation. We will have medical personnel from our healthcare providers working with us to help us really look at this.
And what about the testing? So we're at 7 to 14 days. What's the turnaround time that you would like to see for testing?
A lot shorter than 14 days. Honestly,
right.
shorter than 7 days, because that gives a person a lot of time to be out and about, potentially infecting people. I think the real question is how soon will we have a vaccine? Because technically I could get tested today and I'm negative, and then tomorrow I could be exposed to someone and now I'm positive. But everyone still thinks I'm negative from my results from today. And so the real deal is we need a vaccine, a safe, reliable vaccine.
Will that be mandatory? The kids get the vaccine before they can, if it comes out?
Yeah. I'm not saying that, and that has not been a conversation with the board as of yet. But there are some cases within CPS, and I'm sure other districts have experienced this too, that for religious reasons or just for other personal reasons, parents will refuse to get certain vaccines for their kids. But we have to err on the side of keeping our entire community safe in terms of our school community. And so this is an area that I don't think we'll be able to compromise on. But more to come in terms of a board decision on that.
Well, Superintendent Mitchell, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And I hope you look at this as an open line of communication, with our audience for future conversations.
You can come back whenever you want.
Thank you. I will take you up on that, and I'll be contacting you about the diversity group of parents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
All right. You guys have a good day.
Yeah, you
Bye.
too. Take it easy. Superintendent Laura Mitchell.
I like her.
I like her too. So what do you think?
I'm like, yo, if she creates that diversity channel, I feel like, Nate, we got what we wanted. Like, I'm not on the LSMDC, BS.
No, you were right on point. It's an acronym that, the letters don't add up, but it's really friends who like the principal likes, right?
Pretty much.
And that's not the way it's supposed to work,
Or white people in Hard Park that have money that agitate principal chambers and some of the other schools in the more diverse neighborhoods.
I need a parent's bill of rights.
Yes.
Parents' bill of rights. So what what to expect. And then, she asked the question, the answer is simple. When we leave a message, answer. When we call the hotline, answer.
Right.
Get back with us.
And I'm like, I don't want to spend 3 months on the Holocaust and nothing on African American studies. Like, that was ridiculous.
That's bias. That's straight up racial bias right there. There's no other way of looking at it.
And the over discipline of our babies. I had a principal check the cameras and wanted to give Davis a Saturday school because he literally, instead of walking down the stairs, jumped off the retaining wall. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he was an 11-year-old boy in 7th grade.
Yeah, you told me that, yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? So I think that was good that we were able to get that in.
Well, the next is to follow up. Making sure we follow up with Laura Mitchell and, do our due diligence. It's not just about our children. It's about all the children out there that could benefit from just an open line of communication and just, more progressive, better policies, for parents.
So I want to get
frontline advocates for our children, period. That's not about being negative. That's about being positive and proactive. This is what proactive parents look like.
Exactly.
It's not about baking cookies and all. That's cool. We can do that. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to volunteer, have volunteered.
Yep.
But when we bring up what could be called critiques, that's not that we're against you. I hate when people play this. They do the same thing with law enforcement. Yep. I give you a critique. Now I'm against law enforcement. I'm not against anybody. I'm pro my child.
Thank you.
Period.
Pro my child.
I'm pro my child.
I want to ask you your thoughts on a few key things that she said to see what you think. So a few things I found interesting on the racial policy and her saying that we can't find Black teachers. Now, in the legal profession, we've heard that where we go to the large firms and we say, why don't you have more, Black attorneys at your firm? And they go, we can't find any qualified Black lawyers. So do you believe the narrative? And I wish my sister was here. She's a teacher and a counselor. Do you believe the narrative and the excuse that there aren't enough African-American teachers for them to hire?
You know what? I like to speak intelligently with numbers.
Right.
Her saying that is going to make me go do research.
Exactly.
Then I can speak more intelligently on it. I'll take it for faith. I'll trust but verify, as one of my listeners says all the time. I'll trust but verify it. That's the stance I'm going to take on it. I know a lot of people that's in the education field, so it didn't really seem to be, ring true to my personal experiences. But again, I want to trust but verify and do my own checking on that. And that just means that we got to get creative in terms of where we're looking.
Oh, my sister says she doesn't believe it and she's researching it now. They said they went to HBCUs. Now I know Miami, they're like number one. They pump out teachers like water. My sister went to Miami University, so they have a really strong, teaching program there. So I think that's a good start with the pipeline program, but that's a long-term solution. I really forgot to ask her about getting some of the white problematic administrators and teachers out. To
Right.
me, is the other thing. Like, even if you don't have, this plethora of African-American teachers, I feel like there's non-racist white teachers that you can find to replace the ones that are at the school that are problem causers.
Oh, yeah, we could talk her for another hour. Easy. Just on the anti-racism piece with our own separate but very similar experiences over at Walnut Hills High School. But again, but going back to the other part, to me, that represents a challenge. I think that if you create the right enticements, incentives, then more people might want to go into the field of education. So maybe that's what it is, right?
Okay.
We need to create the proper environment, the proper enticements, incentives to make people feel like going into a field of education is something that's worth their time.
Yeah, my sister said she's in DC, and there are several HBCUs around us. She's a school counselor. So she goes from campus to campus, and she sends kids to college. That's what she does. And she said there are plenty of strong teaching programs at the HBCUs in counties full of Black educators looking for jobs. So I wonder, but I might make that connection. Like, if you guys need help finding Black teachers and administrators, let me try to
Right.
to
So
help. That's a
it's
coach.
a challenge, that nothing more, something that we can deal with, or you can deal with, or whoever. I'm thinking of Teachers for America. Again, I don't know what their racial makeup is, but it sounds like rather than just saying, and I'm not saying this is what Laura Mitchell was trying to imply, but rather than just saying, hey, that they're not going to education, we need to come up with some incentives to entice them to go into
It might
education.
be our city choice. He's like, why would anybody want to come to racist Cincinnati? Facts. So maybe Atlanta has a plethora of teachers, DC area, but when you say Cincinnati, I do feel like people get a nasty taste in their mouth. Like,
Mhm.
we are 20 years removed from the riots, but people still ask me about that when I say I'm from Cincinnati 20 years later. It's a, what do you call it? It's a negative notch on our belt that I don't know if we're going to live down.
Yeah, sustain. And again, that goes back to the politicians, the policymakers, for creating an environment that's productive for everybody. Like, this is not a vacuum. The policy, the environment that the politicians create for this city will impact the ability to attract, high quality talent for everybody,
Right.
not just CPS. That's why it's so important.
Stuff that she was talking about. So how did you feel? I still don't agree with the whole back and forth. And we forgot to ask her this, in the interest of time. But I wanted to get to your question, and I forgot about it. I'm so upset with myself about who is the main driving force on this whole, our kids need to be in school, as opposed to online.
Right.
I feel like, why can't those same teachers that are at school teach in the online space? Like, why do we have to be online, go back to school under the blended model for 1 month? And then she said, it's a strong possibility in November, December, we're going to be back at 100% virtual. I just feel like that's too much for the kids. Just take a position and make that work. Like Cleveland. Right. They're like, look, we're not going to do all that. We're going to concentrate on one type of solution and try to make that solution the best possible. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm a fan of the explanation, or I didn't understand the explanation she gave about why we got to keep going back and forth. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, that was worthy of more. You're right. Well, you know how I feel about it. My analogy is, we would never run back into a house that was on fire because 80% of the fire is out.
Right.
We would say, oh, it's only 20% of the fire. It's just in the bedroom. So yeah, I'm going to go down and watch TV. That's the way I think we should approach COVID-19. Until it's extinguished, until we win, it's over, we don't go back. That's my personal feeling on it. Come up in the live stream, Pam Bowers, I think you mentioned, or I remember myself mentioned that could have been a motivation in terms of why they want to go back to school.
Yes.
In person.
Money, because she was saying basically they set the budget based on how many teachers and everything they need. You don't need as many teachers when you're in 100% virtual space. So she was saying if we start out in real live school and then we end up 100% virtual, the money is already locked in and we just downgrade, but we still keep the funds. But if we start out with less teachers and then we end up having to go back to the blended model, then we've lost the money that we need to hire the additional teachers to make that work. So I
Mhm.
think they wanted to start out open so
Mhm.
that they could have as much money as possible for the kids. But I'm like, you know what? Who's in charge of that shit? Like, I feel like the budget should be fluid. Give us the amount of money that we need to do both options and keep it pushing. If we don't end up using it, we'll give it back, but we got it sitting in a coffer waiting. To me, it's an easy fix. I don't understand why simple things become hard when it comes to government and public entities. I just don't.
This begs the question, does CPS have the amount of money, the cash flow that it needs to deal with these unforeseen contingencies and everything else? That's another question. I think there's a lot of miseducation about the resources that CPS actually has and their availability to open that cash box when they really, really need it. I think that comes back on property owners and parents as well in the city of Cincinnati. We want them to do everything, right? We expect them to do everything because we see this big number, but does that number really represent what they really need to make them, fully flexible?
I don't agree. What did you think? That's what I wanted to ask you. Did you hear her say that they might make the vaccine mandatory? Like, you heard her, she said, I'm not saying it yet, but we're not going to have the ability to compromise on that. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. That's real. That sounds like lawsuits. That's what it sounds like.
Yo, I'm of the agreement that this vaccine is being made too fast. And when it comes out, I'm not taking it, neither is my son.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be in a battle with CPS on making my son take the vaccine in order to attend school.
Sounds like lawsuits. That's what it sounds like to me when she was talking. I'm like, okay.
Wow. So where you guys at in the comments? So if CPS makes it mandatory for your kid to get the COVID vaccine, what are you prepared to do? I thought that was interesting. That might be the end of our road. Like, yeah, we might be on permanent homeschool. Vaccines have risk and consequences. I was telling my son, like, the flu, when you sign up for the flu vaccine, the doctor gives you this long ass waiver and lets you know all the different things that can happen as a result of the flu vaccine. And they spend years developing that, and they've got that down to almost a science. They developed this COVID vaccine in less than a year, and I'm supposed to trust that it's okay. And sign, CPS is going to have a waiver. They got a sports COVID waiver. So what are we going to do, folks?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yo. So that's a real concern. Nat says CPS is illegally funded. DeRolf versus state of what? State of Ohio or State of Ohio Board of Education? I can't see the rest of the comment. I need to see how it does for a year first. Exactly. I'm not willing to take the vaccine. I told my son just yesterday until I see what it does to everybody else. Let the powers that be. Let Bill Gates take that shit first. And then if he's alive in a year and everything's good, because him and his wife are talking about the black people need it first. I'm like, no, you and your wife go ahead. You and Bill and Melinda can go ahead and try it. And we'll see what y'all look like a year from now. And if you don't look too bad, then maybe I'll consider it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me?
No, it is not.
Where you at with the vaccine? Would y'all take it? Nate, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear you. Oh, hell no.
Take the vaccine?
Hell no.
Right.
You already know. Hell no. We're going to have a problem.
We're going to have a big problem. Look, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be suing for everybody. Look. Like,
no.
Everybody.
Like you said, we're going to let Bill and Melinda do that. And then we'll see how that works. And then we're going to wait another year and see how that works. I'm not really a big vaccine. I don't trust it. I don't trust the science.
All right. Tyrone says, I've worked in higher education in Cincinnati for over 2 decades as an administrator, and I've experienced systemic racism as it pertains to hiring and promotion opportunities for African Americans. Cincinnati is a racist city, period. I've worked for CPS as well, but I can't speak on the current state of the district. Anissa, what she said was, when I asked her flat out, let me be honest in what she said. I said, well, wait a minute. You mentioned this vaccine. Are you going to make it mandatory? She said the board has to vote, and we haven't decided that yet. But she goes, the safety of our kids comes first, and we're not going to be able to compromise on that. So to me, that's an implication that if a vaccine comes out, they're not going to compromise and they're going to make it mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to lean, and I'm going to tell everybody now, like, me and Nate have this platform, but it's not just for us to do everything. So you heard it here first. Lean on your school board members that are public officials and let them know how you feel. If you don't want that vaccine to be mandatory, now is the time to start having those conversations and emailing them and flooding them with your opinions about that. Don't leave it on us, because we're parents too and we're busy. I can't carry the burden of the entire school district and everything they're doing on my shoulders. So y'all heard the potential of what can go down. So we put these platforms up for you guys so you can see what's going on and then use your voice. What do you guys think? And what are you willing to do to help us advocate for what it is that you want the district to be? And that goes with, the racial discrimination policy they're going to do, the new, diversity board of Black parents, that we're asking for. That's with the return to school issues, with the Cincinnati Digital Academy, and with this whole, with everything. We do this so that you are informed, and then it's up to you to take action just like us. Because we're involved. Me and Nate don't play no games with our kids.
That's why Digital Media was founded, to elevate Black voices, marginalized voices in the city of Cincinnati, for conversations just like this, for moments just like this. So go to Digital Media's Facebook page and like and share this broadcast, but also the page itself.
Yep. And then to do something with the information, that we give you guys on various, topics of conversation. I feel like a lot of it is awareness. A lot of us as Black parents, we have no idea, what's going on. But we will be, and we're always upset after the fact. After the policy comes out and we find out, then we're upset. But we're giving you the avenue beforehand to try to advocate for what you want before it becomes a thing. Somebody said 100% it's all about the money. What's all about? Yeah, it is all about the money. The state and federal funds are going to be attached to the vaccine. They may be. Yeah, they may do that. I think Trump is still president, which I hope to God he is not. I think he will try to say it's mandatory that if you want to receive federal funds from the Department of Education, that you take this vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Gabrielle writes, if the safety of the kids was truly a priority, they wouldn't require a vaccine that lacks science and testing. I agree with you. And again, they haven't required it yet. You know what I'm saying? We just give you the long view with this conversation, but it's something to consider for sure.
It really is. How many of you guys, I want to hear from some of the CPS parents that are in the feed. How many of you, what are you going to do? And I'll tell you guys where I'm leaning. So originally I was like Cincinnati Digital Academy. My son is never going back to school this year in person, and he won't. So now that they're doing the 100% virtual for the first 5 weeks, I think I'm leaning towards he'll stay at Walnut for those 5 weeks. If after the 5 weeks they go to the blended model, he'll go to the Cincinnati Digital Academy. And if in November and December they go back to 100% virtual, he'll go back to Walnut. But my son is not setting foot into a school building this school year. That's me. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at. And all that stuff that she says, it sounds good, but it's not safe. Having a registered nurse doesn't make it safe. We can't deal with, this whole temperature check. A lot of people that have COVID are asymptomatic. So just because I don't have a fever doesn't mean I don't have COVID. And
just because you do have a fever doesn't mean you do have COVID.
Exactly.
Concerns with that as well. Kid gets a fever, they're calling you to pick your child up. Is it just based upon the fever, or does it have to be in conjunction with some other symptoms as well? So that's something for parents to keep their eyes on. You might get phone calls to pick up your child.
And then, I'm not comfortable with all of this stuff. I don't think they're going to clean. I think in the beginning, we're going to be paranoid. So the janitorial staff in the school is going to make sure that they clean those schools from top to bottom every day for like the first 30 days. After that, it's going to be like everything else in human nature. There's going to be a fall off period. And I think stuff is going to be dirty. And to be honest, I'm worried about the over discipline of our babies when they don't keep the mask on. Kids are going to be kids. They want to give people a hug. They're not going to maintain 6 feet. And I feel like my son's going to be like, are you kidding me? I'm stuck in a class with the same 15 kids all day. I can't move around. I can't walk the halls. He's got ADHD. My son is going to be restless. Before COVID, my son was allowed to take breaks and literally go to the bathroom, go to the water fountain, reset. He would even walk around the school in science class to reset and come back in. My son can't sit in class for 7.5 hours a day without a problem. So are you going to over discipline my son? Because he has an ADHD is a real condition. He's been diagnosed that requires him to have breaks and be able to move around. And the mask.
Right.
Even if they have mask breaks, 7.5 hours a day, it's not possible. Those masks are suffocating.
And as we understand it, like I said, that's why I asked the question about what's being done for the mental well-being of the teachers and administrators, because that's the front line who'll be making those determinations as to whether it should be a discipline issue or if it's just a COVID-19 issue. Are they going to have many of them don't want to be in the school building. Many of them have anxiety already, on top of having perhaps in some cases implicit bias, really not having the heart, to really, view the situations for what they really are, which was already a question. So now you put all these other variables and pressure on top of the situation. It's just going to take some really, really mature individuals that can step away from their own feelings and process what these children are doing for what they really are doing, for what it really is. And it can't be, Johnny's got a discipline problem because he don't want his mask on, or Johnny keeps stepping up and going to the hallway because we've been in the classroom for 4 weeks and 7 hours a day. It's going to take some real mature individuals. I hope CPS is willing to provide the resources and the kind of compassion they're going to need to deal with that accordingly. So we don't have a whole lot of kids sitting in detention and Saturday school and all other kind of issues.
Human. I already know. Like, my son is a social butterfly. Like, everybody at my son's school, knows him. He's a hugger. He's affectionate. And my son is also generous. So he's the kid that if he sees another kid that doesn't have money for lunch, my son will buy your lunch. If you don't have a pencil, or you lost, your book bag, or you need notebook paper, or whatever it is, my son's going to try to give it to you. So what happens when a kid is like, yo, I forgot my notebook today. Can I borrow some paper? I don't have a pen. Do you have one? I'm hungry, and I forgot my lunch money. Can I get some food? Now my son's got to be like, no. That's why I'm like, my son's just going to be at home. To me, this is a cluster screw up. Not only on the COVID-19, medical issues, but even in the social aspect. I don't think that the way they're going to have to interact this school year in light of COVID-19 is going to be better than just staying at home, period.
It's not worth it.
Right.
It's not worth it.
And I feel like we're just going to have a new social interaction problem, because I think our babies have this misconception that when school starts, they're going to go back to school and they're going to be able to high five and dap and interact with their friends the way they used to before this started. And when they get there and it's on some Hunger Games shit, they're going to be like, whoa. And that's what it sounds like. It sounds like it's in the Hunger Games. Is it just me?
This is a Hunger Games shit. That's hilarious.
Right. I think they're going to be like, yo, this isn't what I signed up for. It's too much. We're in line, 3 or 4 times a day getting our temperature checked. We hand sanitizing. We got all these restrictions on our movement and our interactions. It's not social anymore. And on top of that, we got to learn. I think it's going to just call it, but that's just me.
Well, we're going to find out. That's what's interesting. We're going to get a chance to find out in the next couple of weeks how this is all going to play out. And then we can come back to this live stream to see if we were correct in our assessments, kind of looking forward to this particular point.
Yeah, we can.
So we got to do this more. I like this. I like this. We got to do this more.
Yeah, we do. I like you and me being together. And I like us, holding public officials accountable. Maybe we should make this a series where not only do we interview various school board members, but we get city council on. And basically, you and me are doing town halls.
I like that. Let's talk more about that.
Let's get it. I'm ready to meet with not only, other school board members, but I want to meet with city council, Cranley. What else do we got?
You said who now? Who is that? A school official? Never heard that name before. Because it's a damn thing.
Right. Pretty much. I'm like, dude, I want to know what he does all day. I really do. We need to talk to Dieters. That dude seems like he's on drugs. I wonder if we can get him on the show.
Talk to us? No.
Let's see what we can do. Let's try it. Let's try.
That would be.
Let's try.
A very interesting conversation. We'll put it that way.
He might not come back, but let's see if we can get him on at least once.
Okay, let's do it. Let's
see. And let's hear from you guys. What other public officials do you want to hear from? Shoot, I'm going for the stars. Let's try to get DeWine. Look, let's go for it. Or somebody in his camp. Like, let's go all out. Like, let's tell that brother about what he's thinking. Dr. Acton quit yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
What's that about?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in New York. The health director for New York City quit yesterday too. I'm like, basically, it seems to be a theme around the country. They're like, you know what? I'm tapping out.
Right. Either it's too much pressure or they're just being too ignored.
Yeah, they're not being listened to. That's what the chick in New York said. She was like, look, my voice is not heard. I'm out. You don't want to listen to the medical professionals. You want to do you. I'm out. So it's interesting. So anyway.
We're out. Appreciate everybody for being here. Hope you enjoyed this live stream. Please like and share this. It's very important you share this live stream. There's a lot of your friends and family members who couldn't be here. Perhaps they're working or otherwise engaged. Please like and share this stream and look for more. And
thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys on Friday at 12:30 for my normal services. And Nate, you'll be on tomorrow morning, right?
You already know. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. All right. Have a great day, everybody. We out. Hey, Eb, you still there?